If you've recently gone live or are about to go live with your digital transformation, congratulations, you've reached a major milestone. But the bad news is you're not quite out of the woods yet. There's still more work to do, and I'm going to talk about that here today. My name is Eric Kimberling. I'm the CEO of Third Stage Consulting. We're an independent consulting firm that helps clients through their digital transformation journeys. And as I mentioned at the top of the video, getting to go live is a big deal. And unfortunately, go live is not a finite finish line that stops. There's a lot of stuff that needs to happen afterwards, assuming you want to get value out of your system and you want to maximize the investment you've just made in getting to where you are today. So what I want to talk about today are some of the steps in making sure that once you've gone live, you do two things. One is you stabilize and get to a point where the chaos has been mitigated and you're stabilized and sort of back to normal. But more importantly, we also want to get to the next phase, which is actually getting the business value out of the implementation that you just went through. And that's what I'll talk about here today. So to start, let's look at the journey that you've just gone through, or that you are in the midst of right now. And there's some major phases you've just gone through. You had the design phase of your project. We'll create a little chevron for that. You've had the build phase. You've built whatever technologies that you've built or are in the process of building. You've done testing. That's technical testing and user acceptance testing. And then ultimately, we'll call this training as well, testing and training, even though technically those are separate activities. Testing and training, and then ultimately you get to go live. Now, a lot of times organizations think we're at go live with the final phase of our project and we're good to go. We've accomplished our goals. We've hit this major milestone. Now we can go back to our real jobs. Now, the problem with that mentality is that most of the value that you're going to get out of the system comes after go live. And it's not just from using what you've built and deployed here, it's from the things you do after go live. So that's what we want to make sure we do here today, is understand what are those things we need to do after go live to maximize the value and to really invest incremental small improvements that can have a huge impact to get more out of all the time and money and heartache that you just went through to get this point of go live. Now, the first step in this process is to look at your business measures, your performance measures, I should say. So these are the metrics that you use to drive your business. And hopefully you've already defined this as part of your business case, if you had a business case going into the project. If you didn't, then you want to define what are the performance metrics that we use to measure our business, and how can everything we just built and deployed further contribute to that achievement. So in other words, if one of your performance measures is to look at inventory and you're trying to reduce your inventory levels, understand, have you actually reduced your inventory levels? What ends up happening oftentimes post-go live is organizations stockpile inventory because they're worried about operational disruption at the time of go live, and they actually experience a negative benefit here. So when stuff like that happens, and it's inevitable that you're not gonna fully realize the value on day one of go live, we can point to the measures and say, we haven't achieved our measures yet. So what do we need to do to get to the root cause of why we haven't achieved those measures yet? So that's the first step, is to really understand what are those performance measures that drive your business, how have we tracked against those measures post go live, and ultimately what I'll talk about next is what are those root causes that are preventing us from fully realizing the value of this investment. So the next thing we do is a root cause analysis. Why didn't we get the performance measures we thought? And one of the first things that we typically uncover in this root cause analysis is you start to address broken business processes. So these are things that aren't necessarily a reflection of the software. These are things that just for whatever reason, they're not being executed the way the technology was built to be executed. So it could be that people are reverting back to their spreadsheets, or they haven't been trained properly in the system, or the process just hasn't been well defined. So one of the things you want to do is look at those areas where we can make some small improvements to our business processes, but probably have a very big value on the ROI and the overall performance measures that we've defined here in the project. The next thing we want to look at in our root cause analysis is what are those sources of training issues that we may have experienced. Yes, we had a training process or a milestone right here leading up to go live, but inevitably people forget stuff. We forget to include certain things in the training, or reality sets in and there's some refresher training that needs to happen. So we want to make sure that we look at training issues. What sort of retraining, refresher training, or even just standard training do we need to put into place to ensure that people are maximizing the value of the output of the overall implementation? Another common thing we want to look at as part of our root cause analysis is understanding what sort of configuration issues might we have with the technology or technologies we've just deployed. So, in other words, the software may work, and I use the word work in quotes because there's a difference between the technology working and all the bugs being removed versus it actually working for your business. It may work, but maybe we didn't configure it in the right way or the most optimal way. So very much like our broken business processes, it may just be a minor tweak, some minor modification we want to make to our process, which could also affect our configuration of the technology. And these are usually very easy fixes. Again, when you look at all the time and money you spend here, doing some of these things here is very low cost, low risk, low effort, but has a huge amount of value. In fact, this phase of the project arguably has more value at stake than any other part of the project. And so it's always fascinating to me that organizations don't spend more time doing this after go live rather than just moving on with their lives. So configuration is another thing we want to look at as a fourth root cause. Now, in some extreme cases, it may be that the technology that we deployed isn't a good fit for part of our business. Chances are if you made it to go live, unless it was a total unmitigated disaster, it's probably a good fit for most of your organization. But there might be parts of your organization where it's just not the right fit, it wasn't deployed properly, and you need some sort of re-implementation. And that word can scare a lot of people or terrify a lot of people because the last thing you want to think about is another implementation project. And I'm not suggesting you go back and do all of this stuff again, but what I am suggesting is that you target and isolate where the problems are and look critically at, do we have the right technology? Did we deploy it correctly? Do we need to redeploy that technology in a different way? Maybe we just need to rethink the solution and how we're using it. It could also be that maybe instead of re-implementing, we just need to think about fixing the processes or retraining people. But in some extreme cases, that's not enough. There's a core fundamental problem with the way this technology was deployed. And if you look at the complexity of your business, especially if you're a larger organization with hundreds or thousands of employees spread out throughout the world, the odds are higher that you're going to miss something. There's going to be part of the organization that didn't get technology deployed the way it needed to or the way that is optimal for them. So consider re-implementation as an option and don't be afraid of it because again, when you look at all this foundation you've built, to add this little bit incremental improvement here is relatively small but can have a huge impact on your business. Now, when all else fails, you've tried these other 5 things. You've tried to fix your broken processes, you've retrained, you've looked at potential reconfiguration, you've looked at potential re-implementation. You may find that certain parts of your organization, the technology simply isn't going to work for it. There's no good answer without doing some heavy customization or taking on other risky endeavors. And that's okay. For a larger, more complex organization with diverse needs, that's likely to happen at times. So in those cases, you don't want to be afraid to consider the idea of re-implementation. So it may be that there's certain parts of your business where you want to move to more of a best-of-breed model or have specific point solutions that'll better address the needs that are unable to be met by whatever technology you just deployed. Now, a word of warning here is you don't want to fall into this trap if what you're really facing is a change management issue or a resistance to change issue. So in other words, it could be that people are telling you that there's no way this new technology that you just implemented and spent all this time and money on is going to work for our part of the business. You don't understand how my part of the business works, or you don't understand that spreadsheet that I used to use to manage my business. Therefore, I want something different. So you have to really distinguish between the resistance to change and the core fundamental real issues that you may have with the technology that was just deployed. So these are some of the things to think about as you think about your go live. Again, the key here is to not think of go live as a one-time event that's one and done. Even if you're not doing a phase project where it's a one-phase big bang approach, you still want to make sure that you're doing some continuous improvement and focusing on some of these activities to really fine-tune all this great work that you've just done. And if you're doing a multi-phase project where you have multiple phases based on geography or department, different business units, you want to make sure that before you just jump ahead and pull all your resources from one go live to the next, you make sure you spend this time lagging behind to make sure you stabilize and optimize what you have in place. So for more information on digital transformation best practices like this, things that will help you with your go live, I I encourage you to download some of the resources I've included below. I've included a number of links that are meant to help you through your journey. And one of those in particular is our 2021 Digital Transformation Report, which covers a number of best practices to help you in your journey, no matter where you are, whether you're about to go live, you've already gone live, or even if you're just beginning your transformation. So I encourage you to download that information below. Hope you found this information useful, and hope you have a great day.